المفوض. حضرة صاحب الجلالة الملك حمد بن عيسى آل خليفة عاهل البلاد المفدى حفظه الله ورعاه بقصر الروضة هذا اليوم بحضور صاحب السمو الملكي الأمير خليفة بن سلمان الخليفة رئيس الوزراء الموقر حفظه الله عددا من المقيمين الأجانب في البحرين، وذلك في إطار لقاءات جلالته مع المواطنين والمقيمين. وفي بداية اللقاء ألقى السيد جون هيوز الرئيس السابق للنادي البريطاني كلمة أكد خلالها أنه منذ وصوله إلى البحرين عام 1969 راقب البحرين عن كثب، وهي تتحول من تلك الدولة الصغيرة إلى هذه المملكة الرائعة المتطورة، وكل ذلك ما كان ليتحقق لولا القيادة الحكيمة والحكومة الرشيدة. وأعرب السيد هيوز عن سعادته بأن يجتمع هو والحضور بجلالة الملك المفدى اليوم، موجها الشكر والتقدير لجلالته بالأصالة عن نفسه ونيابة عن جميع الحضور لكل الدعم الذي تلقوه من جلالته، مؤكدا الالتزام والدعم التام لمملكة البحرين ومعربا عن ثقته الكبيرة في مستقبل المملكة. وأضاف السيد هيوز أنه والحضور لن يترددوا في تقديم المزيد للبحرين إن استطاعوا ذلك، مؤكدا وقوفهم الكامل وراء القيادة خلال هذه الفترة الصعبة من تاريخ البحرين. كما أعرب عن تفهمه وتقديره للمهام الكبيرة والمسؤوليات الجسيمة الملقاة على عاتق القيادة، والتي استطاعت القيادة أن تكون على قدر هذه المسؤولية طوال 40 عاما، مؤكدا بأن البحرين ما زالت دولة حديثة العهد مقارنة بغيرها من الدول، وما زال هناك مستقبل زاهر أمامها. وفي ختام كلمته كرر السيد هيوز تقديره لجلالة الملك وثقته في المملكة، كونها البلد الذي اختار أبناء الجاليات الحاضرة في اللقاء الإقامة فيه ليس لكسب الرزق فحسب، بل بسبب حبهم له.
Although I think everybody in the expatriate community who are present are delighted to be in the presence of such distinguished company. I would like to split it into two and send a clear message to His Majesty that we would all collectively like to thank him for everything we have received in the past, and equally show him our confidence and our commitment and support for the future during this period which we all know is a temporary one. And I also want to add that if we could do more, we would do it. We support, we pray, we hope, and we are definitely 100% behind the leadership and the guidance and the appreciation of the difficult tasks it is to run a country in these times. It's difficult enough to manage our own homes, but the task that these wonderful gentlemen have taken on board since 1971, which is a mere 40 years ago, we're a small baby as far as a country is concerned. We have yet to blossom in real terms. And once again, I want to assure His Majesty of this collective appreciation and collective confidence that we want to show the country where we choose to live. So many people think we live here just to work and take the money and run away. If that were true, we would not be working in Bahrain. We would be working in a place where we get more money. We work in Bahrain because we love Bahrain. And I really, on behalf of myself, mean that, and hopefully on behalf of everybody else. And I'm looking around and I can see people nodding their head. I hope I'm speaking on your behalf. That's just a small introduction to today's meeting. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Now, may I please invite Mr. Andrew Stevenson of Bahrain Rugby Club to deliver a speech on behalf.
بعد ذلك ألقى السيد أندرو دوغلاس ستيفنسون كلمة تقدم خلالها بأسمى آيات الشكر والامتنان لجلالة الملك المفدى لدعوته الكريمة، وقال: بعضنا عاش هنا لأكثر من 4 عقود في جو من السلام والتسامح والمودة، وبإمكاننا أن نشهد جلالتكم شخصيا بالطيبة وكرم الضيافة التي طالما ميزت سكان البحرين بمختلف أطيافهم. وأكد بأنه خلافا لمجتمعات أخرى تأوي وافدين، فإن الطبيعة الخاصة للبحرين جعلت الوافدين هنا يشعرون بأنهم جزء لا يتجزأ من النسيج الاجتماعي البحريني. وقال إن البعض يعتبر أرض البحرين بيته الثاني، لكن بالنسبة لنا البحرين هي بيتنا وليس لدينا غيرها، ولهذه الأسباب نحن مهتمون بمستقبل هذا البلد ومستعدون أن نضحي بكل ما نملك من أجلها وعلى كل المستويات. وقد أعرب السيد ستيفنسون عن تقديره للدعم اللامحدود لجلالة الملك المفدى، مؤكدا بأنهم سيعملون مع القيادة من أجل رفعة هذا البلد الذي يعتبرونه وطنهم. وأشار إلى أن الوضع الراهن من الممكن أن يكون قد تسبب ببعض القلق، لكن البحرين التي نعرف ونحب لم تتغير، وحسن ضيافة البحرينيين وطيبتهم لم تنقص. وأكد بأن الراديكاليين والأشخاص المغامرين والمنظمات والانتهازيين المدعومين من الخارج قد فشلوا في تدمير نمط الحياة الذي لطالما تمتع به الجميع في البحرين في ظل القيادة الرشيدة لجلالة الملك المفدى وصاحب السمو الملكي رئيس الوزراء وصاحب السمو الملكي ولي العهد، وأن هؤلاء المخربين لم ولن يجعلوا المشاعر الطيبة نحو هذه الأرض تتغير، كما أنهم لن يحولوا دون العزم للعمل من أجل مستقبل هذا البلد وسلامته وأمنه، مشيرا إلى أنه خلال الأزمة كان من المريح رؤية الطائرات التي جاءت لإخلائهم كوافدين تغادر البحرين شبه فارغة. وأضاف أن ما يهمنا كوافدين هو أن تصل مشاعرنا وآراؤنا إلى المسؤولين. لقد شعر أغلب الوافدين بعدم الرغبة في مغادرة المملكة عندما كانت محتاجة إليهم. لقد شعرنا بالحزن ونحن نشاهد كيفية تناول وسائل الإعلام العالمية للشأن البحريني أثناء الأزمة، معربا عن الانزعاج من عدم حيادية القنوات الإخبارية وكذبها المتكرر، كون تلك المحطات التي لا تعرف ولا تهتم بخصوصية البحرين قد شوهت الحقيقة ودمرت المصالح الاقتصادية هنا. وعلق السيد ستيفنسون بأن البعض قد يرى أن الأوضاع في العالم العربي تتطور ببطء، مشيرا إلى أن الديمقراطية البريطانية تطلبت آلاف السنين لتصل إلى ما هي عليه الآن، والبعض ما زال يرى أنها لا تزال غير مثالية. لكن في البحرين تم التحول إلى نظام انتخابات حرة ونزيهة في أقل من 10 سنوات. وأشار إلى أنه كان على وسائل الإعلام العالمية أن تركز على الإيجابيات الكثيرة في البحرين، فهناك دستور يوائم كل معاهدات حقوق الإنسان العالمية، وحصل على دعم البحرينيين بنسبة 98.14%. وهناك فصل بين السلطات التنفيذية والتشريعية والقضائية، وهناك مزيد من الشفافية في عمل الحكومة. كما وجه الشكر لجلالة الملك لتمكين الوافدين من التصويت على الانتخابات المجالس البلدية، وأشاد بالنمو الاقتصادي في المملكة وبالمجهود الذي ساهم في خفض معدل البطالة من 16% إلى 3.16%. وقد حث السيد ستيفنسون الوافدين أن يفعلوا كل ما بوسعهم لتصحيح صورة البحرين في بلدانهم الأصلية وبين أصدقائهم ومعارفهم لكي يعرفوا حقيقة هذه الجزيرة الجميلة، مشيدا بتكوين لجنة الحقائق المستقلة، متمنيا من وسائل الإعلام العالمية أن تقدم تغطية إيجابية عن البحرين تبرز من خلالها الثقة التي تتمتع بها قيادة البحرين الحكيمة وشجاعتها.
2,000 years, during which time many people have got married and they've seen their children grow to become adults. And we've known literally thousands of expatriates who've come and gone from these shores again. Many have returned for 2 or 3 separate sojourns. But happily, thanks to the marvel of modern social media, we're still in touch with very, very many of them, and I know that on every continent on the planet, people are aware of what is happening this afternoon, and your gracious invitation and our presence here, and are delighted by it. I've had emails, I've had messages, many of us have, saying, congratulations, this is a great step forward. And so we're not alone here. There are people around the world who care passionately about Bahrain as we do. and I think it's right that you should know that. Now, the recent situation in the country caused all of us hardship and heartache in equal measure. Yet the Bahrain we know and love is still intact. The hospitality, good nature of Bahrainis hasn't diminished. We've been through a hard time. We're still here. The country's still a great place to be. Radically inspired individuals, organisations and foreign-backed opportunists have tried and failed to destroy the great way of life we enjoy under the leadership of Your Majesty and His Royal Highness Prince Khalifa bin Salman Al Khalifa and the Crown Prince. The foreign entities, the radically inspired individuals, have not and will not sway us, the expatriate community, from the affection in which we hold this land that we're proud to call home. Nor will they deter us from our determination to work for the future of a safe and secure Bahrain. On that, you have our assurance, Your Majesty. It was with some amusement that many of us witnessed the arrival and departure of empty aeroplanes to evacuate the citizens of a particular European country during the recent crisis. They came and they left empty. Because in times of strife, what's required are not acts of political correctness, but an understanding of the reality of life on the ground. What people needed and got was to feel that as expatriates, their views were heard and their true feelings conveyed to those in positions of authority. That is what is required, not knee-jerk panic evacuation on empty aeroplanes. For the most part, the majority of expatriates did not feel the need to desert the kingdom in its time of need. And many of us actually stayed and worked harder and longer hours during that time than we had previously. And that takes me to the way the Kingdom of Bahrain was treated internationally and at the hands of the international media. The treatment Bahrain received at the hands of the international media saddened us all. We were dismayed by their lack of objectivity, frequent inaccuracies, presented round the clock by 24-hour news channels, sensationalist international media who neither know nor really care about the true nature of Bahrain. They distorted the truth to the detriment of our own personal and business interests here in Bahrain. And perhaps the international media would do well to focus on some of the positives a little more. And there are lots of them. For example, some people say that things move slowly and evolve in a very steady way in the Arab world. Shway shway, the Arabic way. Well, maybe in some ways they do. But in some ways they don't. It took almost 1,000 years for British democracy to evolve to what it is today. And some would say it's still not perfect. In Bahrain, you have moved in less than 10 years to an open, free electoral democracy. Well, there was nothing shway shway about that, Your Majesty. Mabruk. Yes, perhaps the international media would do well to concentrate on things like that, and many of the other positives that have taken place during your reign. For example, we have a new constitution complying with all international treaties on human rights, which was blessed with an advocacy of 98.4% of Bahrainis. We now see separation of executive, legislature and judicial powers, and we have more transparency in government operations. And, as another example, thanks to Your Majesty, we enjoy municipal voting rights for qualifying expatriates and have seen 3 successful parliamentary and municipal elections. Economic progress has been remarkable, and we can only be proud at the national effort to reduce unemployment from 16% to 3.6%. And that's another example, and a very important one. Your Majesty, yesterday you announced your decision to appoint an independent fact-finding commission comprised of eminent persons who have no role in Bahrain's government or in the political system. This commission will report on the evidence and give such recommendations as it sees fit. And I definitely hope that the international media can give positive coverage that fairly portrays the confidence and courage of our leadership. Those are some examples of things that the international media could report, if they were being fair. Now, pardon me for one moment, Your Majesty, while I address my fellow expatriates, I would encourage every last one of you here, ladies and gentlemen, every last one of you, to counteract the misleading image of Bahrain that has been spread. Counteract it in your own home countries, on the internet, by email, on Facebook. Tell your friends and acquaintances the truth about this beautiful island. The intrinsically genuine, kind nature of the people of Bahrain. It's the very reason why we're here. So tell people about it. It's your responsibility just as much as that of the media. We are uniquely what we are. We're here. It's a super place. We're glad to be here. So let's tell people about it and be proud of it. Now, it is unfortunately a fact of life that not everything goes according to plan. There are often tough and painful decisions that need to be made. And it's not for us to shy away from the responsibility of dealing with those issues in a just and fair manner. We therefore, Your Majesty, wholeheartedly, and I speak for the entire expatriate community here, I'm sure, we wholeheartedly support the national dialogue, conceptualised and instituted by Your Majesty, which reaches out to all of those who reside in the kingdom and offers the opportunity to build an even stronger and more prosperous Bahrain. That initiative has the total moral and principled support of the expatriate community. You go into the dialogue process, Your Majesty, taking with you our very best hopes and wishes. We're with you, and we pray for a safe, balanced and fair outcome to the benefit of all. Furthermore, we believe that we too, as expatriates, have much to offer. And we feel that our voice, through a forum which can communicate the real needs of our community, could be positive and helpful as a contribution to Your Majesty and to the government of the Kingdom of Bahrain. Bahrain has often sought to draw comparisons between itself and the island nation of Singapore, a similarly disenfranchised place when it comes to natural resources. Now, a key element of Singapore's economic success has been the strength of its legal system, particularly in relation to property investment. The ability of the expat population here in the kingdom to invest in property with confidence and security is a major benefit to those who live here, though it's an area where many believe that a suitable forum that could raise genuinely felt issues of concern would be welcomed to add to the sense of security in terms of investment. We're aware that all Bahraini nationals have representation and access to Your Majesty through Bahrain's cultural, social and political mechanisms. We would, therefore, like to petition Your Majesty's patronage and support in the establishment of an expatriate council which would become a forum of communication and provide members of the expatriate community in Bahrain with a platform of communication direct to Your Majesty. The main object of such a council will be to solicit Your Majesty's help in the resolution of problems and issues which can and do arise from time to time within the expatriate community. And at the same time, provide feedback and a conduit coming back the other way. In essence, we would love to help, and an expatriate forum would be a very good starting point. And it wouldn't be a first. Throughout the history of the region, Bahrain has always been a major pioneer, with a number of regional firsts. Oil, 1932, education, aviation, offshore banking, aluminium, and perhaps an expatriate council. The creation of such a council, we believe, would once again put Bahrain at the forefront of dynamic innovation and change, leading inevitably to similar initiatives being implemented by our regional neighbours. The Expatriate Council would greatly assist Your Majesty and those responsible for the affairs of the nation by offering support and recommendations in dealing with issues that, if they're not dealt with, only serve to detract from the goals that have been set out in Vision 2030. The work of the Expatriate Council would be to act to address both personal and professional concerns and help to promote Bahrain's real image against the false defamatory representations that we've seen in certain organs of the international media. The Expatriate Council would happily contribute in all of these regards. I'm sure many of us would be immensely proud to be given the opportunity of serving on such a council and giving back to Bahrain a small part of what it has given to us. Your Majesty, we're truly honoured to have been granted this audience this afternoon, and for your genuine interest in the concerns, ideas and aspirations of the expat community in the Kingdom. We hope that as time moves forward, we, in partnership, can add, we can contribute, we can work and support you and your efforts to take Bahrain into the future. And so, thank you, Your Majesty, for the privilege you've given to all of us who've lived and worked and thrived in this atmosphere of freedom, peace and prosperity. And in conclusion, well, it says here, I'd like to echo the closing remarks of my fellow speakers, but only John has gone before me, so it's not really an echo yet. But it says here, in conclusion, Your Majesty, I would like to echo the closing words of other speakers here today, and on behalf of all of us say that you truly are the pearl of the Gulf. Thank you.
Majesty, Your Royal Highness, dignitaries and
ثم ألقت كل من الطالبة جابي ويلسون والطالبة جينيفر جيلبرت كلمة قالتا فيها إنهما ولدتا هنا في البحرين والتي تعتبر وطنهم، وعاشتا في هذه البلاد على مدى 17 سنة الماضية، حيث غرست في داخلهما شعور، بل غرست في داخلهما شعور قوي للانتماء جدا لهذا المجتمع والحب لهذه الجزيرة الجميلة، معربتين عن امتنانهما لحكومة وشعب البحرين على منح بيئة صديقة مليئة بالحب والترحيب وهي في تطور وازدهار مستمر، مشيدتين بنعمة السلامة والأمن التي تتمتع بها هذه الجزيرة الجميلة. وقالتا إن نشأتنا هنا في البحرين قد وهبت لنا الكثير من الفرص، ولقد كنا محظوظتين بشكل استثنائي بأن تكون لدينا فرصة الدراسة هنا في البحرين وفي مدرسة سانت كريستوفر طوال حياتنا المهنية الأكاديمية، فهي بيئة أكاديمية قوية ومتنوعة وغنية بالأنشطة الصيفية، وأيضا التنوع في الجسم الطلابي الذي يعكس التنوع الغني في سكان البحرين، بالإضافة إلى استعداد لقبول مختلف العادات والثقافات والأديان في المملكة. وأعربت الطالبتان عن الفخر الشديد للانتماء للبحرين، ولقد مرت البحرين مؤخرا بمرحلة صعبة، مثنيتين على صاحب الجلالة الملك حمد بن عيسى الخليفة والحكومة البحرينية لاستعادة الاستقرار والثقة إلى البلاد. وهذا يوضح لنا سياسة البحرين القوية نحو بناء مستقبل مزدهر، مؤكدتين بأنهما ستغادران هذه الجزيرة لمواصلة الدراسة الجامعية، وهو أمر يثير العواطف. ومع ذلك ففي المرحلة المقبلة لن تنسيا الدروس التي تعلمتاها من الشعب البحريني حول الطيبة والوئام وحسن الخلق.
Where are you from? And we respond without hesitation, Bahrain, even though we are actually British. We feel that many others in this expatriate community feel this steadfast sense of loyalty, which is one of the reasons which makes Bahrain such a unique and unified country.
Bahrain has recently been through some difficult times. We would like to commend His Majesty King Hamad and the Bahraini government for restoring stability and faith to the country. To us, this illustrates Bahrain's unfaltering policy towards building for the future. This country was built on the foundations of community, strength and faith, and we believe that Bahrain will not be dissuaded from this righteous path.
Eventually, we will leave the island we call home to go to university. This will be very emotional for both of us. However, wherever we go next in life, we will never forget the lessons we have learned from the Bahraini people about harmony, kindness and gentleness.
Our love and loyalty for Bahrain will not be deterred. We owe Bahrain so much for allowing us to spend our childhood, our formative years, the best years of our lives, in this wonderful island. As we enter adulthood, we firmly believe that the people we are today have been shaped by this very island in which we grew up.
The saying goes that you can take the person out of Bahrain, but you cannot take Bahrain out of that person. For us, this is very true. Thank you, Your Majesty and the Kingdom of Bahrain, for all you mean to us and what you have done for us. You will forever be in our hearts.
Your Majesty, you are the pearl of the Gulf.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
بعدها ألقت الآنسة بيتسي بماسيوزن قصيدة.
Your Royal Highness, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, and children, I think, or a rather badly behaved adult. Thank you for the honor for receiving us this afternoon. I first arrived in Bahrain in 1980. A very young girl, and I hasten to add, a very small percentage of those 2,000 years that Andrew talked about. And I felt at home in Bahrain from the very first day. I felt I belonged here. And I can remember at the beginning of this year reading a speech by British Prime Minister David Cameron, who said that multiculturalism has failed, it cannot survive. And I remember writing a letter to him saying, Mr. Cameron, come to Bahrain. Not only does multiculturalism exist, and not only does it survive, but it is thriving here in Bahrain. Your Majesty, have a look around you today. Multiculturalism is alive and kicking, and Bahrain engenders that in every one of us, so thank you. The recent events have caused a lot of pain and anguish for many of us who love Bahrain, who hold Bahrain dear in our hearts. And as a writer, I have spent several months of days and nights writing to the international media with outrage, with anger, that they can write such lies about the atrocities that have been happening to our country. Barefaced sensationalism. Unfortunately, they chose not to print it because the truth doesn't sell as many newspapers as sensationalism does. There comes a time in everyone's life, Your Majesty, where you feel there are moments that define your life. In English, we say, it's time to stand up and be counted. But the English language does not compare to the rich tapestry of the Arabic language. And so what inspired me to write the poem I'm about to read for you? I decided that this point was a defining moment in my life, and in Arabic you would say it was al-dunya mawaqif. And here I am, I'm going to read the poem that was inspired by my al-dunya mawaqif, with your permission. The betrayal of the kingdom of love. On our day of hearts, February 10 and 4, they broke our hearts with murderous acts abhor. National trust was horribly broken. Thoughts of betrayal before unspoken, unthinkable in the hearts of our nation. Terror, riots, menacing elation of traitors who used fear and dissent, unleashing volcanoes of anger unspent. Bahrain of love and peace, a haven. Loyalty to our leaders remained unshaken, despite the treacherous acts uncrying. Love for king and kingdom undying. The world may judge on false tears and lying. BBC, CNN, Sky News are flying with lies, more lies and dramatic sighing. But truth and honest acts see evil dying. Recognition once more for love and passion. 2 C's, 1 people, tolerance, compassion. For centuries, we see tireless surviving, despite the jealous hatred and conniving of those whom evil eyes have coveted you, whose envious evil greed we eschew. In good and in Allah we praise, to Al-Khalifa our hearts we raise. Dilman will always remain eternal, as the love for our kingdom burns bright, infernal. Let all hearts sing with one accord. Praise be to Bahrain, our King and Lord. Let all Bahrain live in harmony and serenity. No Sunni, no Shia, just loving Bahrain for all eternity. Our strength is in our inherited brotherhood. National loyalty triumphs all falsehoods. Forgive quickly, but forget you not the horror that regional evil brought. Traitors may find it easy to say sorry amidst trials, prisons, a future of worry, but strength, it comes from speaking true. So use your pride and let's state it anew. Al-Bahrain, we love your warm embrace, welcoming all despite creed or race. Fear not those who truly love Bahrain. Your tortured suffering will not be in vain. From the ashes as a phoenix she will rise, flying, soaring to surprising new heights. Let all who love her join hands and heart. Welcome this joyous, bright new start. Leave behind the angst and grief. A united Bahrain is our true belief. To those who love another, enjoy your pain. Leave our shores where true hearts remain. In another country your trust place, and live amongst those with double face. A small kingdom we may be in size, but the enormity of our heart is what we prize. Masalama, black flag, black heart, black mind. Love, loyalty, and peaceful harmony again we find in white hearts, white minds, white wings of dove. Al-Bahrain, the eternal kingdom of love.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Ladies and gentlemen, I am pleased to address you today as representatives of Bahrain's wider community and also as valued friends. As the challenging period we have also recently witnessed draws to a close, I would like to take this opportunity to discuss the future of this nation and our peoples as we embark on a renewed chapter of reform. As you are no doubt aware, this Saturday heralds the commencement of the national dialogue. It will be a true dialogue in every respect, and no section of Bahrain's wide and diverse society will be ignored. Its aim will be to shape not only Bahrain's immediate future, but to lay the foundations for generations to come. Built upon consensus, and by consensus, it will take into account the aspirations of all and will not be defined simply by a few. It is a basic truth that for a society so rich in diversity as Bahrain, a shared, agreed, and common approach must take into account the views of many, while seeking to leave no one behind. Only a dialogue that speaks for all can result in an outcome capable of being embraced by all. As a result, the dialogue's reach is wide. Its focus is broad, dealing with not only issues of democratic development, but recognizing that the development of a nation requires the continued advancement of its social and economic environment. But underlining confidence in Bahrain's commitment to the way ahead also means addressing issues in our recent past. More specifically, there is a need to examine recent events to establish and assess with absolute and unimpeachable clarity both the actions of the authorities and that of protesters and related groups. I am also highly conscious of the need to reinforce Bahrain's continuing commitment to both our domestic and international obligations in respect of human rights, to which we remain fully committed. As a result, yesterday I announced the formation of an independent commission of inquiry led by a panel of international experts whose expertise and impartiality are beyond reproach. The Commission's terms of reference are wide-ranging, covering the events of February and March this year and the subsequent events following this period. The Commission will have unfettered access to all government records and government officials, It will have complete autonomy over the scope and method of approach and the rights of anyone cooperating with the Commission have been fully protected and guaranteed. I have asked for the Commission to report its finding no later than October 30th this year, and these will be made fully available to the public. This is an important, significant and essential step to continuing our program of reform and entering a new phase of its development. Those of you who have known Bahrain for some time will know that it has always taken pride in its openness and tolerance as a society. It is something that has always been a hallmark of the fabric of Bahrain and must remain so in the future. It is a national characteristic that has defined Bahrain, not through social engineering or design, but because it is genuine and heartfelt. And it has, of course, traditionally been a universal draw for those visiting and also living with us. Indeed, I would like to pay tribute to all of you here and the many expatriates who call Bahrain home for the contribution you make and the part you play in helping shape Bahrain. The expatriate community is an important part of Bahrain's diversity and strength. You have brought new skill sets to our commercial market, brought new companies to country, provided employment for Bahrain's people, and enriched our business environment immeasurably. Furthermore, you have made yourselves as much a part of Bahrain as I hope you feel Bahrain has of you. You have my greatest thanks for your continued support, involvement and input into Bahrain's ongoing development. Your value to the community is gratefully recognized, and in turn, you are indeed valued members of our community. Thank you for joining me here today and for joining the country as we take our next step towards our shared future with a renewed spirit of togetherness. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
to thank the King for inviting us here. It's been a fantastic chance for expats that don't live in Bahrain or aren't national Bahrainis to come and meet the King. And I wish him all the best with any dialogue and things going forward.
And today, His Majesty was so gracious to meet the expatriate community, and where he again spoke in clear terms that Bahrain's reform process is entering a new stage after the national dialogue starting on Saturday. We, as part of the Indian community, about 400,000 Indian community, we want peace, prosperity and development for this beautiful country. And prosperity and peace of Bahrain is the prosperity and peace of the Indian community.
I'd like to thank His Majesty the King for inviting the collection of the expatriate community to sit with him and discuss the way forward about his new plans for fresh dialogue. It's been a pleasure to serve Bahrain in the past, and I'm sure with his guidance and wise decisions he will take us forward into the future.
It was a fantastic meeting to be here with His Majesty in the palace, and it shows again the fantastic support of the expatriate community in the future of Bahrain. We all know it has been a challenging few months, but it's good to see that everything is looking forward to the future. There's some great initiatives, as we heard His Majesty talking about the national dialogue on Saturday starting, which is all very, very positive. And you see around you, we talked about people that were born here, although they don't hold the Bahraini nationality, but they've been here living for 20 years. People have been born here. We all love this country. We're all very proud to be in Bahrain, and we all hope that the future will be as bright and prosperous as what we're all looking forward to.
I've lived in Bahrain for 20 years. Both of my children were born here and I got married here, so Bahrain's very special in my heart and to all my family.